Okay, well, the weirdest thing is that they use the word discovered, and it's one of the few history things you learn, like, as a young kid in American public schools, like, you don't get to things like, World War II or, like, Vietnam or anything until way later, but we celebrate Columbus Day almost, like, concurrently with Thanksgiving. It's like the two holidays or the two themes that we have that are like our primary history are like all about colonization and genocide, but we like draw little fucking hand turkeys to memorialize it. It's kind of ridiculous to me, and then we forget it once you're out of elementary school. That's weird. It's just like, oh, it totally just like comes into how we think about colonization and genocide later on. It's something that's sad and terrible, or we don't take it seriously, and we treat the things the same way when we see like Oxfam ads or something on TV. We're just like, oh, that's so sad. We treat it really petty. I think it's a really big thing because, what did Columbus go for? He went for gold and expensive spices and, natural resources. And what does capitalism do? It plunders. It takes resources, and the same way that Columbus saw the Arawaks as a resource, it sees our labor, our lives as resources. We're consumers, we're not human beings. Arawaks are slaves, and they got wiped out. That's just one market that's inaccessible to Spanish colonists. The unemployed and the homeless, they're kept in the corners of East downtown. I think it's totally relevant, the fact that we're in an area, we're camping out on the streets, we're kind of taking on this role that, the most marginalized and disenfranchised and the most poor have kind of been forced into. And we're taking this position as like a point of resistance. And Columbus Day ties in with history and our background and where we come from. We as marginalized or just disenfranchised workers, in quotations, we have to start from scratch and really like fight and struggle in unsanctioned ways just to even be heard or to be taken seriously. I'd like to see more discussions about connecting our movement with other movements around the world, connecting our movements with indigenous struggles around the world, connecting our movements with the history of the land that we're on, the fact that we had multiple indigenous languages spoken here with multiple groups that lived here for thousands of years, and within 300 or 400 years in San Diego, we've been colonized by Spanish-speaking people. We were colonized by another Spanish-speaking group, Mexican government. We were colonized by a third English-speaking group of California, and finally by the United States through annexation. That's 4 different colonizing systems in the last few hundred years in one location with the same border and always on a border. And I mean, every war, it's been pivotal. I think, we need to connect all these dots, and it all starts with Columbus Day. It all starts with 500 years of colonization. That's the beginning point. That's where we gotta start, so we don't keep this racism or this, focus of colonization, in our culture and our, in our resistance movements. Yeah, we've got a lot of layers we gotta peel back and take a look at and really question the fact that we live in a place, where Spanglish is the first language of so many people. We're a product of it, and we gotta acknowledge that, when we interact with people, and we gotta bridge those gaps. We gotta work with people to the north of us in LA, and we gotta work to people, in Tijuana and Mexico and wherever. Bridge those gaps and make ties, make connections, and don't fuck with people in stupid ways.